This is something I've been working on for a lifetime. At this point in my life, I'm 69 years old. I've had years and years, oh my God, more years than you can even imagine, of experience in business. All the way from starting as a call center agent way back in the 70s to being a CEO and president as I am today. So being the guy that I am, I started writing a book because I figured, okay, well, maybe someday someone will see this somewhere, pick it up, it'll plant a seed for them, and they'll get some of the lessons that I've worked hard to learn. So with that, the book is called Lessons I've Learned in No Particular Order. I did grab onto a couple mentors, and all unbeknownst to them, those are the people that I learned with. So let me share with you some of the lessons I've learned in no particular order. Hey everybody, good to see you today, or at least you're seeing me. It's June 24th, Friday. I'm not going to take too much of your time, but I think today's lesson is going to be important. Before I go there, let me explain where I'm sitting. It's not a beautiful room. It's not a wonderful office. It is an art studio that I have been put into where I can stay out of everybody's way. So in that, it's private, and I'm going to give you the best that I can give you. You know, I think a lot of people at some point in their life decide they want to go write a book. They think that what they've gathered may be important to memorialize, to give to other people. So why am I calling what I'm doing Lessons I've Learned in No Particular Order? It's because as I grew in my positions and I was promoted or moved from one position to the next, there were always things I didn't know. In fact, I would tell you that most of the time when I walked into a new position, I wasn't necessarily prepared. So as I began to search for what to do, a couple things happened. One is I just lived my life minute to minute, hour to hour, day by day, and I just faced the decisions that I had to make throughout the day to get somewhere. And over time, I began to learn that the best way to do that was really to have a vision and to have clarity about what did I want to see as an outcome. And it wasn't often that I walked in on day one and knew exactly what outcome I wanted. Yes, I wanted success, but I didn't necessarily know what success meant in that particular position. I wasn't trained perfectly for each position I was in. So I began to learn things in different ways. A lot of it was just simply from taking action and having success or failure. And I learned my lessons in no particular order. It wasn't like a book where I started at the beginning and it said, here's how you do your job. And at the end, I figured that out. It wasn't that way. I just learned things as they came to me in no particular order. Now, I worked at educating myself. I read constantly. I asked questions of many people. As I said, my actions themselves produce failure and success. And ultimately, the width and the breadth of what I gathered, which came in no particular order, became who I am today. And interestingly, as it says at the introduction, I'm 69 years old, and I've been doing management for really over 4 decades. And I would tell you this, that I don't know when this happened, but it wasn't all that many years ago, that I only now feel like I'm in my prime. So I had a lot of success along the way, and I didn't need to be in my prime to have success. But the difference maker for me was the culmination and combination of all of these lessons that I learned in no particular order. And today it allows me to feel completely confident in what I'm doing, and even confident when I'm not sure what to do next. And with that, let me talk to you about today's lesson, which is, look, ideas are great. It's important. We all need ideas. We have nothing to work off of without an idea. But what is really important is an idea with a way to implement that idea that's manageable. So let me give you a good example. 2 weeks ago, I asked our entire employee group to send me their ideas about what we should do to grow our business. It was a specific ask about growth in our business. And I got back wonderful, well thought out ideas from tens and tens and tens of people. And certainly there are some consistencies and there are some unique things. But as I look through them, what I look for is not to judge the idea. Ideas are just ideas, but to overlay, how would I do that? How would I implement that? And if I implement that, is it a manageable piece? Is it something that I can manage time and time again? So think of it this way. You have an idea, you know you want to do something. Let's just say that something is, I want to go implement call center technology successfully to each client while not disrupting their environment while I do that. And by the way, that's the ask of every single client that we work with. How do I implement in a safe way for the client and an efficient way for both us and the client that gets them to the result they want, but without disruption? And by the way, when we perfect that, we may be the first people to do it because that's really the most difficult piece. So if I go out now and I say, how do I do that to people? I'm sure I'll come up with a lot of good ideas. But the idea that will stick will not be the one that I think has the coolness factor. It'll be the one that I can figure out what is the process to implement this. Now, why do I need a process to implement this? I need a process to implement this so it is repeatable and sustainable. But I also need that process so that it's manageable. Because if I just lay out the steps to do something, ultimately what I'm going to get is a different flavor of that. I'm going to tell you a lesson that I learned years ago in one of my businesses. We were a business, again, in contact center technology, where we believed that we had set up perfect process, frankly, for everything we were doing with a client. And we would lay out our processes because we had the idea of what we wanted to do, and now we determined a process. And we would lay them out on a flow chart on our walls in our support area. So that was how we went about our business. And then when something broke down, the process stated that we went back to the wall and we looked at it and we said, where in fact did the process fail? Which step did not work? It wasn't always that the step did not work because we avoided the step. Many times it was not necessary to do that step. Many times the step itself became the problem. But whatever it was, we had another process which said we will take that and we will go into a change management approach to change the process. So we start with a process one place, and over a period of time it evolves into a more workable and manageable approach. So we felt very confident in this. We asked our managers to manage to this. And really the questions we were asking suggested, of our managers, suggested they were doing that. One day I get a phone call from a client. And they say to me, you know, Steve, what changed about you? You've gotten very big. I remember when you weren't, and I was one of your early customers, and now you're big and you don't care anymore and you're not interested in me. And I was sitting at my desk listening to this and thinking, what he is saying is not possible within the context of the processes that we have put in place. Well, there was one particular part of the process that spoke to my thinking that. And that was that every support case that came in on a daily basis had to have a resolution or a next step plan for the following day at latest. So every single thing had, in a sense, a call result code attached to it that meant that it was being attended to and focused on. So here's what I found out. I immediately went and said, how could this happen? What's going on? We're not managing properly. There's something wrong. Who failed? All of the normal things you ask and usually fear that there's something wrong and you don't know what it is. And as we began to dig deep, and remember this, that we had a system that said no support call was not attended to on the day it came in. And we found over 700 open tickets without resolution that had built up over quite a period of time. So the question was, how did that happen? Why could that happen when we had this good idea of how to set up proper process and a way to evolve that process and rules attached to it that made sure that every day everything was attended to? How do you end up with 6 or 7 open tickets? And by the way, every single person would tell you that within their own thinker that they thought they were doing the right thing. So here's what we found out. And by the way, we jumped into this and we just really charged. Everybody began to work on these. It cost us well over, I think it was $1.3 million and 6 weeks of intense 7-day-a-week work to catch up on all these tickets. And it was like, this can never happen again. But what do we need to change? That became the thing. So where was the problem? Here's what we found out in our case. So our case was the customer's always right. And in that, do whatever you have to do as quickly as you can to resolve the issues for the client. And remember the rule, everything needed to be attended to in that day. So we had support people in the US, in Arizona, in New York, Iowa, Manila, India, all over the world. So we had, I think, 130 support people. Here's what we found out. The support people were essentially saying the most important thing of all of the things to do is to make sure that I can do my best for the client immediately. And what they began to do was they began to overlay their process into the mix. But here's the thing, when individuals begin to overlay their process instead of adhering to the process, it's not because they're doing something wrong. It's because the process isn't working and the management of the process isn't working. So you have a process that is not being managed, not because people don't want to manage it, but because it can't be managed. So we had this great idea, and ultimately, I think people would have said that we were hypocritical because we weren't following what our core design was. We thought we were, and every single person that had open tickets was because they said to themselves things like, I'm the best one to solve this. I just can't immediately get to it. I'm going to get to it as soon as I can, but I know this customer. I'm closest to this customer. I get what they're thinking. I'll get to a solution. I'll own it. Well, the process said to pass it off to other levels of support. They felt confident that they were the best person to solve it. And by the way, maybe they were, but we didn't have a process for that. And so the management wasn't understanding that there was this hidden layer of support going on that was process by individual, what is best in that moment. And we had 600 or 700 open tickets. I'm sure we had a lot of great solutions to tickets too, but ultimately you can see that it resulted in a customer calling me and saying, you've gotten too big, you're not interested in the customer, you're only interested in your money and what you are gaining. And that wasn't true. So we went back and we said, all right, what is an idea as to how we can resolve this, get to the core approach the core need that we want to do, which is solve problems quickly for customers. And then how do we do it so it's managed? Again, a lot of ideas came in from all of our staff. What we did was we found the single idea that, by the way, was criticized, I think, by many people. And we took that idea because it was the easiest to implement and the easiest to manage and hold ourselves accountable. And I'll tell you, I can only tell you the result. The market began similarly at that time to come to us because they understood that when they came to us, we cared and we invested a lot of time and effort in them. And I don't believe that our company grew from those types of referrals because we were doing it wrong again. I think we figured out that simple is better. Management is easiest when what they're managing is simpler. And no idea is a bad idea, but only an idea that can be implemented and manageable is sustainable and repeatable is the one you want to go with. So that's a lesson that I learned in no particular order. I think if I'd have learned it in order, we might not have had 600 or 700 open tickets. So listen, next week, let me tell you what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about prioritization. How do you prioritize a business, a project, many projects, actions that you need to take, when in fact, everything seems important? So with that, I'm going to let you go. Thanks so much for spending time with me today in your Friday. I hope you got something from this and in no particular order. Thanks again. You take care.